Should you be paying off debt first or saving for emergencies in an emergency fund first? Great question. Today, I'm going to be telling you about a real emergency we just had and why it was possibly the worst potential time for this to occur. So stay tuned. Hey, Frank Thomas here from Wealth Generation Strategies, and the big question is, should you be saving for your emergency fund first or prioritizing paying off debt first? I know I'm going to fly in the face of a lot of financial gurus and the advice that they give, but I'm going to tell you, real life has taught me that your emergency fund is more important than that pesky debt. Let me explain this by going through a bunch of questions here. Why is your emergency fund so important? Your emergency fund is there to cover life's expenses that are legitimate emergencies. In other words, an expense you are not expecting, but you have to pay. This isn't going out and buying a thingy bob, okay? It's something that happened, you got to pay. And I'm going to be sharing a real emergency that just occurred. If you have established an emergency fund and put enough into it, you can have some pretty big emergencies and still be okay. In other words, this is for you buying a little bit of peace of mind, so to speak. Just keep that in your mind. What happens if you focus only on debt elimination? Emergencies can and they will happen. I promise you this. It will happen. Life is just packed with emergencies that occur. Now, paying off debt is super important. In no way am I denying that. But if you focus only on debt elimination, and if you have an emergency, you will be scrambling. I promise you. You'll be scrambling and will have to use debt, back to debt, to cover that potential emergency. This, in my opinion, is a real demotivator. I like to call it the hamster wheel. Oh my goodness gracious. I found myself on that stupid hamster wheel for close to 20 years. You think I'd get, grow a brain and realize this isn't working. But I listened to the gurus that said, pay off debt, pay off debt, pay off debt. And I have learned that I pay off my debt, and I've paid it off on several occasions, but I never got a chance to establish the emergency fund. I get really close to being debt free, and then bam! Another one of life's emergencies would occur. Welcome to life. And before we continue on, if you're enjoying this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Love to have you on board, and whenever I drop a new video on the channel, you'll be sure to get it first. So thank you so much. Like and subscribe, and hey, if you want to go one step further, hit the notification bell. You'll know when I do drop a video. It won't be missed. Thank you so much. How should you proceed? In other words, how much should you save in an emergency fund? I used to believe that saving, let's say, $3,000 to $5,000 in an emergency fund would be more than sufficient. It is for small emergencies. But what happens if you have a big emergency? I'm in the middle of a big emergency right now. About 3 months ago, I wrapped up a contract I was working on, and I have been out of work since the end of that contract. It sucks, and it's not for trying to find something else better, but with a lot of the economic uncertainty that's happening right now and what's going on in the world, and Canada is sucking back and holding their breath right now, and nobody, and I say nobody, is really hiring right now, and that's frightening. This could last a long time. I'm starting to believe that I'm going to have to start building my own opportunity to start getting money rolling in again. Here I am in the middle of this huge emergency. I've basically used up all the cash that I had built up in my business. It's all gone now. And I have been starting to pull from my emergency fund. Yes, I saved quite a bit in that emergency fund. I was hoarding like a crazy man. There's an old saying, think like the ant. If it's summertime, think winter. And through this whole contract, I was doing very well. I had a very good contract with a very high rate on it. And every extra dollar went to the emergency fund and long-term savings. I've got that covered. Then there comes the question, how do you handle more than one emergency at a time. You have to fund your emergency fund to handle more than one emergency at a time. 2 weeks ago, the water heater in our house decided to start leaking. Now, let me tell you a little secret. It was 21 years old, and you're going to go, Frank, that was a stupid move. If you know anything about North American water heaters, they only last about 10 years or so. Insurance won't cover them more than 10 years. So that's a pretty good indication. Once they hit the 10-year mark, start thinking about replacing it. But our water tank is part of our heating system in our house, so it's a very expensive water tank. You can see how the whole play is coming together here. It's terrible. So I've actually developed a saying, it's better for you to plan for and handle equipment replacement rather than letting equipment tell you when it's time to be replaced in a breakdown. And that's exactly what happened. The hot water tank decided it was going to start leaking. Now, if I didn't have a really healthy emergency fund, that leads me to the next question. What is the best emergency fund plan? How do I put it together? If you want to put an emergency fund together, how are you going to do it? I recommend saving only to your emergency fund until you've saved at least $1,000. Do your minimum payments on debt that have to be paid, but save that critical $1,000. This will cover you for small emergencies and only small emergencies. Remember that. Going forward, split your efforts between paying down debt and building up your emergency fund. Then work towards having 1 month of your total household expenses in your emergency fund. My total household expenses is just over $6,000 a month. So I saved $6,000 a month, or I saved $6,000. And then work towards saving 3 months. So I saved, in my situation, 6,000 times 3, $18,000. Now, I used Questrade, and what I did was I combined my long-term savings. Now, don't save this in a retirement account, like a RRSP or 401k. There's lots of tax implications when you do that, so just don't do that. Use another vehicle like a Roth IRA or a standard brokerage account, or in Canada, TFSA. You can pull money in and out. Yes, there is some implications, but establish your emergency fund and money that's just far enough away that it's not easy to access, but not so far that it's impossible to access. So that's the whole idea. To give you some idea, Questrade, you're looking at about a week before you pull any money out of it. So if you want to pull $1,000 out for an emergency, or $5,000 or $20,000 or whatever it is, expect it to take about a week to process. So just so you know, I'd actually recommend, as part of your emergency fund, because of that, save $2,000 to $3,000 in a bank account that's a little further away from your normal bank account, but you can access and get access to it within minutes. So that'll deal with the small emergencies right off the kick, and put the rest of it into a brokerage account. Now, why would you do that? You get a better rate of return. You'd still want your money to get some sort of rate of return, and unfortunately, though banks are very convenient, they don't pay very well when it comes to interest. How much did I save? I saved over 14 months of life expenses in my emergency fund. Yeah, 14 months. And I'm really glad that I did. So as a conclusion, it's not nice to spend saved money, but it's much better than getting into more debt. There is a degree of peace of mind, even if you're not a millionaire and you haven't saved $1 million, let's say, that you will still have a choice in case you're out of a job temporarily. It really sucks to have to work for much less or do tasks you don't enjoy because you're literally one paycheck away from bankruptcy. Peace of mind. It's all about peace of mind, and your emergency fund is buying you that peace of mind. So establish that emergency fund. Honestly and truthfully, it is that important. If you get into an emergency like I'm in, I would be selling my house right now, and I'd be selling it at fire sale prices and losing money because of that. Because I have this emergency fund, I can ride out this current emergency until everything kind of gets back right side up. But let's say you've already established your emergency fund and you're completely out of debt. But you look at the economic news of the world today, And you say, well, where am I going to invest? Well, I'm glad you asked. I got a video that'll be showing up on the screen right about now that can guide you on how to invest during economic uncertainty and will show you that this is an opportunity in disguise. So be sure to check it out. Otherwise, Frank Thomas here. Thank you so much for joining me today. And hey, let's get these emergencies covered by saving to your emergency fund. Ciao for now.